Hey guys, tonight we travel back to the cradle of civilization, ancient Mesopotamia. Picture this. Your bed is made of reeds. The air smells like dust and cow dung, and someone outside is shouting about goats again. The sky is pink with heat and smoke, and you're already sweating before your eyes fully open. You've got about 16 hours of hard labor, confusing rituals, and maybe one mildly terrifying priest ahead of you. And honestly, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and what time it is. There, I love seeing how far this sleepy little tribe of ours reaches. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up before dawn, curled on a mat, woven from palm fronds and reeds. There's no pillow, just a rolled up bundle of goat hair cloth that scratches your cheek. Your first thought, why is it this hot? You're inside a one-room mud brick house. Its thick walls supposed to keep you cool. Spoiler, they don't. Outside, the desert air hasn't even tried to cool off. It's barely morning and already thick, with that sticky mix of heat and fine silt that coats your lips before breakfast. Your home smells of ash, animal fat, and old water. That kitchen corner, it's just a fire pit and some cracked pottery. A single low window lets in the golden glow of sunrise, and also the yells of your neighbor yelling at his cow. Again, welcome to Sumeria, roughly 4,000 years ago in what's now southern Iraq. Historians still argue whether the Sumerians invented the first city or just copied it better than everyone else. But one thing's for sure, they mastered the art of organized misery. You live in a city-state, likely or Lagash, surrounded by farms and guarded by mud brick walls that mostly keep out enemies, and do absolutely nothing against the mosquitoes. As you sit up, you stretch your aching back and look around. The house is shared. Privacy isn't a concept yet. Your parents, siblings, maybe an uncle and a goat are in here too. There's no door, just a hanging rug. And that goat, it's staring at you like you owe it rent. Outside, someone bangs a bell. That's your cue. The priesthood runs the day schedule here, and sleep-ins are not a thing. You shuffle out, barefoot, into the dusty alley between homes. The ground is hard-packed dirt and pebbles. Your foot hits something squishy. You hope it's mud. It probably isn't. The streets are winding, narrow, and loud. Chickens, kids, merchants, and stray dogs move like ants in a maze. You squint at the sky, already blindingly bright. No sunglasses, unless you count smearing crocodile dung on your face, which some Akkadians actually did. You opt out. You notice something overhead, reeds and fabric crisscrossing between homes to offer a little shade. It helps, barely. Your hair's damped with sweat already. Your tunic sticks to you like wet parchment. The wool's thick and smells like it's been washed exactly never. A cart lumbers past, pulled by a donkey with attitude issues. The driver shirtless, tanned, with tattoos of cuneiform. Prayers, shouts, curses older than Latin. You jump aside just in time. Behind him, two kids carry baskets of dried figs and look just as miserable as you. And here's the kicker. You haven't even eaten yet. You pass a ziggurat in the distance. Its giant temple steps clawing at the sky like a sand-colored pyramid on steroids. Smoke rises from incense inside. Priests in spotless robes chant something deep and guttural. You mouth along, hoping no one notices you've forgotten the words. At this point, your legs ache, your eyes itch, and you're questioning why anyone ever thought living in a desert swamp was a good idea. But it gets worse. You hear drums. That's the overseer. Time for work. But your stomach growls louder. Maybe you'll get lucky and someone will toss you a barley cake or yesterday's porridge, one that hasn't fermented into a science experiment. You duck into a shadowed corner to splash your face with water from a communal basin. It's lukewarm and smells faintly of lentils. You use your sleeve to dry off. Big mistake. Now you smell like wet goat and regret. Somewhere nearby, someone starts reciting the day's omens, probably from a sheep liver they read this morning. The priest mutters about east wind betrayal and unfavorable goat dreams. You sigh. If the gods are already annoyed, this day is going to be a masterpiece of misery. And still, somehow, this is the best part of your day. Your stomach is still growling as you shuffle toward what passes for breakfast. There is no cafe, no barista, and definitely no oat milk. Instead, you're handed a warm, slightly foamy cup of barley beer. It smells earthy. And by earthy, you mean like someone strained it through a dirty sandal. But hey, it's nutritious. Kinda. Beer is the drink of choice. In Mesopotamia, water is often so full of sediment and microbes, it might turn your insides into a history exhibit. So, children drink beer, old folks drink beer, the priests drink beer, and now you're drinking beer. It's cloudy, thick, and has chunks floating in it. You sip, trying not to think about what those chunks might be. Too late. It's chewy. With your beer comes a wedge of barley bread, dry, gritty, and baked in a clay oven that burns hotter than a Mesopotamian summer afternoon. Okay, it's mostly charcoal. You bite into it and immediately feel a grain of sand crunch between your teeth. That's not a metaphor. There's always sand in the bread. It's everywhere between your toes, in your ears, and now in your mouth. This bread was made with a grinding stone. And let's just say the Mesopotamians didn't have dental insurance. Every time you eat, you're slowly filing down your teeth. It's like eating a snack and visiting the dentist at the same time. Except the dentist is a rock and the anesthesia is pain. You tear another piece of the bread and try dipping it in some date syrup. A vendor selling nearby. The dates are sweet, sticky, and full of tiny insects. You pick one out and keep going. At this point, your standards are lower than a Sumerian slave's lunch break. Around you, the city comes alive. People are arguing. Children are chasing a goat that clearly doesn't want to be chased. And a man nearby is loudly advertising what sounds like fermented fish paste. You don't want to know. This marketplace smells like ambition and feet. There are bundles of herbs, mint, garlic, coriander mixed with the scent of hot donkey and dust. Somewhere nearby, someone's roasting meat. You consider finding it. But then you remember last week's mystery stew, and how long it took your stomach to forgive you. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian breakfasts were more ceremonial or practical. But what's certain is that food wasn't about indulgence. It was about survival. Your meal has enough nutrients to get you through the morning, but taste is very much optional. You wash down the sandy bread with another gulp of warm beer. It gurgles in your stomach like a trapped demon. You burp. It tastes like damp wood. Suddenly, a child older than 7 runs past, holding a bundle of leeks and laughing. Hot on their heels is a trader yelling curses that would make a Sumerian goddess blush. The kid disappears down an alley. You admire the hustle. You spot a woman squatting near a fire pit, fanning coals under a copper pot. She's making something that smells half edible, maybe lentil. She sees you and scowls, probably assuming you're about to ask for a free taste. You wisely move on. Your path takes you past rows of open front homes, each one a little different but all built from the same sun. They're functional and simple but melt like cake if their river floods, which happens often. In fact, earlier this year, your cousin's house floated 2 streets away. He had to fish out his sandals from a canal and sleep in a storage shed with 6 chickens and a blind dog named Udu. The smell never quite left him. You turn a corner and pause by a well. There's a long line. One man dips his jar and comes up with something brown. He looks at it, shrugs, and walks off. You decide you're not that thirsty after all. The beer is beginning to hit. Your head feels a little foggy. That's intentional. Many people here prefer to start the day slightly buzzed. It makes the heat, the noise, and the lack of proper plumbing slightly more bearable. Speaking of plumbing, you notice a dark trickle running through the street. You hope it's just spilled beer. The city doesn't have a sewage system, only cleverly sloped alleyways and luck. You sidestep it and whisper a prayer to Enki, god of fresh water and fish. Mostly out of habit, you pause under a shade awning for a brief moment, enjoying the relative cool. A passing scribe gives you a knowing nod as he juggles a clay tablet under one arm and a stylus in the other. He looks exhausted. You nod back, as if to say, yeah, I get it. Breakfast was a war zone. Your stomach churns a little, reminding you that chewy beer and sandy bread may not be the most balanced diet, but it's what's on the menu, day after day. Unless you're rich, and you are very much not. Somewhere, a priest begins a chant that echoes through the market. It's the mid-morning offering. Pigeons scatter, dogs bark, and a fruit vendor tries to hush them both. And just like that, your breakfast break is over. The sun is higher, the heat is rising, and someone somewhere is definitely about to shout your name and tell you to get back to work. You toss the last bit of bread to a passing chicken. It pecks at it, then walks away like it knows something you don't. You really need to relieve yourself. Not exactly the glamorous part of history, but hey, you asked for the full Mesopotamian experience. Now, you're not going to find a bathroom. That word doesn't even exist yet. What you will find is a clay pot tucked behind your house, possibly shielded by a few reeds. Privacy, that's a modern luxury. Here, doing your business is everyone's business. If you're lucky, there's a stone to squat on. If you're really lucky, it hasn't cracked in the heat and pinched the last guy who used it. So you do what everyone does. Squat low, eyes darting for witnesses, and try not to fall backward. You hope it'll be quick. It's not. The flies show up immediately, because of course they do. The pot smells like it's seen generations of trauma. There's no soap, no water basin, not even leaves. You grab a handful of dust and wipe like that's normal, because here it is. Toilets in Mesopotamia range from potent, depending on how much status your family has. The rich might have a cesspit, basically a deeper hole with better smells. Some historians still argue whether flushing systems existed in the wealthiest homes, but the consensus is, if you're using a pot, you're not that rich. You walk out of the alley and try to pretend none of that just happened. The breeze is merciful well, until it kicks up a dust storm that coats your face, your clothes, and definitely your armpits. You try to shake it off. Bad idea. Now there's dust in your ears. With breakfast settling uneasily and your dignity slightly bruised, you head toward your next destination. The Tigris, long, shimmering, and deceptively beautiful. It's your lifeline. It's where you wash, gather water, dump waste, and occasionally fish. It's also where kids play, dogs drink, and elderly men stare into the water like it holds all the secrets of life. Spoiler, it doesn't. You arrive and join a dozen others scooping up water into jars. The riverbanks are muddy and slick. You slip. Not enough to fall, just enough to look like an amateur. A nearby teen with 2 fish tied to his belt snorts. You kneel, fill your jar, and try not to notice the dead rat floating a few feet away. The current pulls it downstream before anyone else sees it. At least, you think they didn't? Nobody says a word. That's Mesopotamian silence for, let's pretend that didn't happen. You splash your face, which is brave considering what's in this water. It tastes like silt and mystery. Still, it's refreshing. Mostly, you return to your house, dodging another refuse stream in the road. People throw waste liquids solid or suspiciously in between right into the street. It flows downhill in shallow channels designed by early city planners who thought down is good enough. Sometimes it rains, which floods everything and sends the city into panic. And sometimes it doesn't rain for months, which is when the gods get blamed and goats get sacrificed. Either way, you're just wet, tired, and confused. Back home, you realize someone else used the clay pot while you were gone. You sigh the sigh of ancient resignation and step outside again, maybe forever. You decide to walk to the temple district. Not because you're religious, oh you'd better pretend to be, but because it's uphill and occasionally has shade. You pass a group of women scrubbing laundry in a stone basin. Their conversation sounds like gossip, prayers, and complaints wrapped into one. A few of them glance at you and chuckle. You check yourself. Nope. Just regular amounts of dust and humiliation. The temple looms ahead, ziggurat stairs winding up toward the heavens. Some believe they connect Earth to the gods. Others believe they're good exercise. Either way, the priests definitely don't climb them. They make apprentices do it. You see one now, red-faced and panting as he hauls a jug of sacred oil upward. You salute him with your water jar. He glares, like he wishes his gods accepted excuses. You circle the ziggurat and spot a man shouting about omens again. Something about the moon being angry and frogs jumping in unnatural directions. You nod, as if this checks out. Mesopotamians took omens seriously. Even an owl hooting the wrong way could cancel weddings or halt trade. Historians still debate whether this was superstition or an early form of meteorology. Either way, you'd better listen. You head back down into the residential area, dodging a cart that's lost one of its wheels and now lists like a drunken ox. The driver curses, the ox sighs, and someone shouts that this is clearly the god's judgment. Again, your jar is heavy, your sandals are soaked in mystery liquid, and your dignity took another small hit, but you're managing, you're adapting, sort of. At least until the midday sun shows up like an uninvited landlord and starts charging rent on your forehead. You remember stories of the great floods, how entire neighborhoods once vanished under brown, roaring water. You wonder how anyone survives here. Then you see a child jumping into a barrel of water, laughing, while 2 women sprinkle rose petals into their hair as a cooling ritual. It's hard, but not joyless. Misery is optional, depending on your attitude and how many rose petals you can afford. You walk back toward your home. The streets stink of heat and wet brick. Someone's playing a flute. It sounds like a dying bird. But hey, it's something. Your day hasn't even truly begun, and you're already sweaty, gritty, and emotionally bruised. Welcome to the cradle of civilization where every breath tastes like history, and every step might land in goat poop. You're finally back home. And by home, of course, we still mean a one-room oven made of mud bricks with no windows, no chairs, and no real sense of personal space. Inside, your wool tunic sticks to your skin like someone glued a blanket to you while you were sleeping. You'd take it off, but there's no such thing as privacy, especially not when your aunt, your cousin, and someone's pet monkey are also in the room. Clothing in Mesopotamia isn't really about comfort. It's about duty, decency, and letting everyone know your place in society. You throw on a fresh tunic, which means less dirty than the last one. It's wool. Again. Always. Wool. Rough. Scratchy. Slightly smelly wool. It was probably woven by someone in your family during the dark months, when sandstorms made outdoor work impossible. And it feels like it was washed in gravel. Fashion here is rigid. If you're a man, you wear a tunic, basically a wraparound skirt, made from sheepskin or tufted wool. If you're wealthy, it might have a decorative fringe. If you're not, it just looks like a rug tied to your waist. Women wear long, sleeveless dresses, sometimes belted, sometimes embroidered depending on how many shekels they've saved up. The elite get linen. You get whatever was left after we shaved the sheep. You'd try adjusting the fabric so it doesn't rub your underarms raw. Doesn't help. It still itches like betrayal. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a polished bronze mirror. You look historically accurate. Your hair's tied back with a strip of cloth, and there's a streak of something on your cheek. Possibly mud, possibly food, possibly both. Good enough. Jewelry is big in Mesopotamia, but again, only if you can afford it. The elite strut around in gold rings, lapis lazuli, amulets, and earrings so heavy you wonder if neck cramps were considered a status symbol. You, on the other hand, were a simple bead necklace. Clay, not precious stone, but outside, the heat rises like a punishment. You wrap a loose shawl around your head and step back into the street. The dust clings to you like gossip. You pass a man wearing sandals made of palm fiber, flapping loudly as he walks like a parade of ducks. He waves. His tunic has a stain that's been there since last week. You both pretend not to notice. Fashion isn't just aesthetic, it's about rank. Clothing shows if you're a merchant, a priest, a laborer, or someone about to be fined for looking like all three. Historians still argue whether laws dictated exact clothing for each class, but there's no doubt that judgment comes fast and from every direction. Dress too well, and people think you're pretending. Dress too poorly, and you'll be mistaken for a slave. Dress just right, and maybe you'll be ignored, which is the goal. You arrive at the work site, a half-finished wall made of sun-dried bricks. The foreman eyes your tunic and grunts. You start mixing mud and straw, slapping it onto bricks and stacking them like heavy, crumbling Legos. Within minutes, sweat soaks through your wool. Again, someone nearby is wearing nothing but a loincloth. Clearly, a slave. You envy him, at least he isn't itchy. But then he's yelled at and whipped for stopping to scratch his leg. So, you take back the envy. A scribe walks by. Robes crisp. Sandals clean. He carries a clay tablet and a stylus. The ancient version of a clipboard. He's here to record how many bricks you lay, how many times you stop, and probably how often you sigh dramatically. You shoot him a look. He doesn't care. He's probably writing whiny laborer number 4 in cuneiform. You pause to wipe your forehead. Big mistake. Now, your hand and face are both smeared with dust, sweat, and a mystery smudge that smells faintly of garlic and despair. You glanced over at a group of merchant apprentices. Their tunics are dyed light blue, maybe even red. Fancy they deal in grain, oil, or textiles, and walk with that smug, I don't touch mud attitude. You resist the urge to throw a clump of clay at them. A breeze finally blows through the alley. For 3 seconds, you feel alive. Then it changes direction and blows someone's trash right into your face. Naturally, by midday, your tunic is soaked. Not just damp, you could wring it out and probably get enough liquid to water a fig tree. That's when it happens. A dog runs by and knocks over a water jar. It smashes near your foot. Shards fly. You yelp and hop. People laugh. You wish you were wearing thicker sandals. You retreat into the shade of a low wall. You sit, back sore, tunic glued to your spine. Someone offers you a leaf fan. You accept. It smells like onions. You fan your face and try to dream of breezes that don't carry the scent of donkey. The day drags on, and your wool continues to betray you. You wonder if nudity is illegal. Probably, The priests would say it offends the gods. Then again, the priests say everything offends the gods, including sneezing at the wrong time and looking too long at a temple goat. As you shift your weight, you hear a rip. You freeze. Yep, the seam in your tunic has surrendered, right under the armpit. You pretend not to notice. Everyone else pretends to. That's the social contract. And then, just as the sun begins to slide westward, the work ends. You drag yourself home, covered in mud, dust, sweat, and shame. You peel off the tunic with the gentleness of someone removing a bandage. Your skin is raw. Your dignity. You hang the tunic up to dry. It stiffens almost instantly, like a woolen sculpture of your own suffering. And just like that, fashion has defeated you. The foreman's horn blows from 3 alleys away, and like ants poked with a stick, the city wakes up into motion again. You stretch your sore back and head toward your job. Or, more accurately, the punishment you call a job. In Mesopotamia, there are plenty of professions on paper, but most of them involve dirt, fire, sharp objects, or yelling. You're not a scribe, you're not a priest, and you're definitely not a king, which means you're on brick duty again. Today, your task is hauling bricks from the kiln to the temple construction site. Each brick weighs more than your last meal. They're sun-dried, not fired. So if you drop one, it'll crumble. Drop too many, and you'll be disciplined. You still remember the last guy who messed up. He left with bruises and came back with noticeably fewer teeth. So you hoist a basket of bricks onto your back using a leather strap across your forehead. It's clever, in the way medieval torture devices are clever. You walk, one step at a time, through the heat, the noise, and the judgmental stares of donkeys who clearly think they're better than you. It's not glamorous, but it's important. This temple is sacred. Well, more sacred than your spine, apparently. Halfway through your 5th trip, a supervisor stops you. He wants you to realign the bricks along the west wall. You nod, trying to look eager, but inside, you're wondering if death by heat stroke would count as honorable. You drop to your knees and start rearranging. Dust swirls around your face. You cough. It tastes like baked dirt and regret. Historians still argue whether these laborers were paid or coerced. The truth, it depends. Some are free workers, some are servants, and some, like that exhausted man next to you with a scar across his cheek, are enslaved. He doesn't speak much. You don't ask. Mesopotamia doesn't have HR. You spot a potter nearby, shaping clay into storage jars. His hands are thick, his fingers calloused. You watch as he spins the wheel with his foot. It looks soothing, until you remember he's doing it for 12 hours straight, with no lunch break, and a boss who once threw a jar at his head. Not far away, a carpenter saws through palm wood. The saw squeals. The wood splinters. There's no such thing as safety goggles or earplugs, just fingers crossed in a prayer to Nurgle, god of death, to stay distracted for the afternoon. The high-status job scribes, merchants, priests are all taken. You know this because they walk past occasionally, looking bored, carrying styluses or scrolls. Their sandals on. One scribe smirks as you wipe brick dust off your forehead with the corner of your tunic. He probably gets paid in silver. You get paid in beer. Not joking. Beer is the literal paycheck for many workers. You'd complain. But honestly, it's better than sand and dreams. You keep moving bricks. One slips. It cracks. You freeze. No one saw. You tuck it under another pile. If the gods are watching, you hope they're feeling merciful today. Next to you, a young boy, maybe 10, struggles with a basket. His arms tremble. He looks like he's trying not to cry. You help him lift it. He nods in gratitude. No words. Just survival. You think back to your other job, once herding goats in the outer fields. Sounded easier, until you realized goats are chaotic evil. They eat everything, climb everything, and occasionally shove you into rivers just for fun. You lasted 3 days. Another job, red cutter. You get into waist-high swamp water and hack at reeds all day. It's peaceful, if you like leeches. You don't. Or you could be a fisherman, paddling a coracle, those round boats that look like floating bread bowls. The fish are slippery, the boat is wobbly, and the water, questionable, at best. Still want to be a baker. Have fun standing in front of a 600-degree oven, slapping dough onto the walls, while the room fills with smoke and everyone yells about your bread being too spongy. You still don't know what that means. Maybe you'd prefer to be a temple cleaner. Sounds nice until you realize cleaner means scrubbing bloodstains after sacrificial rituals. And there are a lot of rituals. Goat blood doesn't come out of sandstone. You wipe your brow. Again. Sweat runs down your neck and soaks your tunic. The brick dust turns it into a paste. You're officially part sculpture now. There's a brief break and the heater cloud passes over the sun. The workers sigh collectively, as if Allah himself just exhaled. For 2 glorious minutes, the temperature drops from unbearable to just miserable. Someone offers you a drink, yes, beer again. Warm and sour. You drink anyway. Then the overseer claps his hands. Back to it. You carry bricks until your knees ache. Your fingers blister, and your shoulders feel like they've been attacked by vengeful spirits. By late afternoon, you can't remember how many bricks you've moved. 30, 50, 1,000. Hours pass like wet. Cliffs low, heavy, and impossible to clean off. You look down and realize your hands are cracked. Your fingernails are black with grime. Your back pulses in a rhythm that might be Morse code for, please stop. But you won't. Because if you stop, someone else suffers. Or worse, you suffer again. So you lift another brick, and another, until the sun finally begins to set, and the overseer blows the horn again. Work is over, kind of. You should be going home now. Maybe to wash up, or at least collapse in the least painful corner of your floor mat. But no, your day isn't finished. Not until you survive the final gauntlet of Mesopotamian life. The legal system. Someone accused you of stealing a goat last week. You didn't. Probably. It's all a blur. You might have borrowed it briefly. Regardless, you're being summoned. The judge operates from a small stone bench beneath a shady awning near the temple gate. There's no courtroom, no jury, no lawyer to lean on dramatically. Just a stern man with an unibrow, a clay tablet, and the full weight of Hammurabi's code behind him. You swallow hard. That's not a metaphor, you literally just swallowed a fly. Hammurabi's code is the first known complete legal system, and it's engraved in stone like your fate. An eye for an eye isn't just poetic, it's policy. Accidentally smash someone's pot, you pay. Accused of theft, you prove your innocence or else. You stand before the judge as he scratches something into his clay. You'd start to speak, but he raises one finger. Wait your turn. You do. Then your accuser steps forward. A cranky older man with wild hair and breath like fermented onions. He claims he saw you with his goat. He insists, which is funny, since he once tried to sell your sandals when you left him unattended. You start to protest, explaining you were moving bricks all day. But the judge doesn't care about your feelings. He cares about evidence, which means witnesses. You'd glanced around, hoping someone will help. One of your neighbors shrugs. Another scratches his ear and walks away. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian courts leaned more on truth or on theatrics. But one thing's clear. If you lose this case, you could be fined, flogged, or if it's serious, thrown into the river. Yes, that was a real punishment. If the gods let you float, you're innocent. If you sink, well, good news. You're with the gods now. Fortunately, your accuser stumbles mid-speech and calls the goat by the wrong name. The judge narrows his eyes. He scratches something else onto his tablet and waves you off. Case dismissed. You walk away faster than you've walked all day. You're not always that lucky. Take the young man you saw yesterday. He got caught trimming reeds from the wrong canal. Simple mistake, but the reeds belonged to a priest. Big mistake. They branded his hand with a heated stylus to remind him of ownership. He won't be forgetting it soon. Then there's your cousin, who tried to claim a neighbor's land after a flood shifted the boundaries. No one could prove where the original plot line was, so the court ordered both men to swear innocence in the temple of Enlil. Your cousin hesitated. Bad move. Now, he lives in the goat shed, and refers to himself in the third person. You pass by the main legal board, an upright stone stela where laws are carved in neat cuneiform rows. It looks mudgy, until you remember one of those lines reads something like, if a builder constructs a house and it collapses and kills the owner's son, the builder's son shall be put to death. Justice in Mesopotamia. Brutal. Precise. Very ... transferable. You stop for a moment and stare at the laws. Your finger hovers near one that mentions dowries. Another talks about debts. One even outlines divorce rules. If your spouse can't produce children, you can send them away, as long as you return their dowry. Sounds fair-ish. And yes, there are laws for witchcraft, livestock damage, and even tavern owners. Female tavern owners who don't report criminals face execution. There's a whole section for irrigation crimes too. If your canal leaks and floods your neighbor's field, that's on you. With interest, some laws are more symbolic than enforced. Others are very real. Like the one about false accusations. If you falsely accuse someone of murder, congratulations. You've just earned that punishment for yourself. Suddenly, the old man's goat story doesn't seem so funny. On your way home, you see a priest reading omens with a sheep liver. He's muttering something about dark spots and divine anger. A merchant nearby whispers that the gods are unhappy with the marketplace. A child kicks a pebble and nods solemnly. That's evidence now. You'd think back to your little legal scare. You got off easy. Others aren't so lucky. Some are fined half their property. Others lose body parts. One man had his tongue cut out for insulting the king. Though to be fair, he did call him potbelly of Nipper. In public, at last, you return to your alley. Your legs ache. Your brain is tired. Your heart is racing slightly from the adrenaline of almost becoming fish food via false accusation. You think about how fragile fairness is here. One wrong word, one bad omen, and you're done. Laws are carved in stone. Sure, but sometimes, justice feels written in sand. Still, the system kind of works. Disputes are settled. Land is managed. Contracts are enforced. And as long as you know the rules and don't cross a pre-stool, probably survive. You decide to reward yourself for surviving the Mesopotamian legal system with a visit to the market. Not for luxury. You're too broke for that. But just to look, to breathe in something other than dust, sweat, and fear. Plus, there's just a chance you'll find a fruit vendor who doesn't overcharge or yell in your face. The market district is loud, crowded, and slightly dangerous in the way a food fight might be. If the weapons were spoiled fish and ceramic jugs, you're hit by a wave of smells as soon as you're round the corner. Roasted onions, unwashed feet, dried dates, animal dung, and incense all competing for dominance in your nostrils. Incense is losing. Vendors shout at you from every direction. One waves a clump of garlic in your face like a bouquet. Another tries to sell you what looks like a squirrel, cooked and impaled on a stick. You smile politely and shuffle past, trying not to inhale too deeply. You pass a table piled with spices, turmeric, cumin, coriander, all imported at great cost from lands so far away they might as well be fiction. These tiny pinches of flavor are worth their weight in silver. You lean in, you sniff, you immediately sneeze so hard your back pops. Blessings of Ishtar, the spice vendor mutters, handing you a cloth. You thank him and don't buy anything, which earns you a look that could melt clay. You wander deeper into the chaos. A merchant loudly proclaims that his sheep are practically divine. One of them bleats, like it disagrees. Another man waves around strips of cured meat that smelled like salted ambition. You're tempted until you see a fly colony staging a revolution on top of the drying rack. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian markets had fixed prices, or if haggling was the norm. Based on what you're seeing, haggling is absolutely the norm. In fact, not haggling is practically an insult. A woman in a fine linen robe is currently screaming at a fishmonger over the price of a catfish with one eye. She seems to be winning. You try your luck at a fruit stall. Figs, pomegranates, dates. You reach for a bruised fig, and the vendor slaps your hand away, then gestures to a tiny clay sign. Look with eyes, not hands. Fair enough. Your stomach growls. You haven't had real food since the sandy bread and the chewy beer. You spot a man grilling onions over an open flame, the smoke curling upward like a promise. He sells you two for the price of one, mostly because the second one is burnt beyond recognition. You don't care. You eat both. They're perfect. Behind the food stalls, artisans display their wares. One has rows of painted pottery, delicate bowls, fluted vases, jugs shaped like lions. Another sells jewelry made from shells and colored stones, probably scavenged from rivers far away. You admire a necklace, and the vendor immediately insists it was blessed by a high priestess. It brings fertility, he whispers. You back away slowly. You're not looking for fertility right now. You're just hoping to make it through the week without becoming a case study in ancient work injuries. You pass a man holding a monkey on a rope. He claims the animal can predict the weather. It throws a fig at your head. Accurate. Near the center of the square, a group of entertainers draws a crowd. One juggles clay cups. Another plays a reed flute, terribly. A third balances on one hand atop a barrel, shouting poetry about the moon. The applause is polite but distracted. Most people are here for trade, not art. You take a moment to observe the people. Elite women in embroidered robes, their heads veiled. Elderly men with beards like woven ropes. Children darting between stalls like sand-colored ghosts. Everyone has a role, a rhythm. You start to feel it too. This place is more than chaos, it's living chaos. And you're part of it now. You approach a vendor selling textiles, bold patterns, deep reds, soft yellows, The fabric feels smoother than anything you own. You ask how much. He eyes you, takes in your sweat-soaked tunic, and laughs. For you, a week's wages. You nod. Pretend you were just browsing. He rolls his eyes and mutters something about dreamers. You don't blame him. Dreaming in Mesopotamia is a luxury. You pass by the temple storehouse where scribes record every major transaction. Inside, someone is scratching into a clay tablet, recording how many baskets of wheat were traded for how many jugs of beer. You pause to watch. The scribe dips his stylus, carves a wedge, then another, building words from symbols that look like bird footprints. It's mesmerizing. The clay tablet is still damp. He lays it in the sun to dry. Just like that, history is being made. You wonder if one day someone will read about you buying 2 burnt onions and dodging goat poop in aisle 3. Probably not. Just before sunset, a final horn echoes across the market. The vendors begin to pack up. Some cover their goods with woven mats. Others roll their carts away. A few linger, still arguing with late customers. You make your way toward the edge of the market, passing a woman selling perfume in tiny stone bottles. She dabs a drop on your wrist. You sniff. It smells like crushed flowers and hope. You wish you could afford it. You keep walking, the sun glowing orange over the city walls. The noise fades behind you, replaced by the soft bleating of distant animals and the distant chants of priests preparing for evening rituals. You're tired, and somehow, you're content, at least for now. You're dragging your feet now, dust curling behind your sandals, when a man shouts your name from across the road. You flinch. You owe him money. You fake a smile and duck into the nearest alley, heart thumping. Welcome to Mesopotamian economics, where debts are tracked, interest is steep, and forgetting to repay can land you in the worst situation of all. Slavery. Not the dramatic kind with chains and whip knots usually. Here, it's more like becoming someone's no-pay assistant until your debts are cleared or the stars realign. Sometimes, it's temporary. Other times, not so much. He once knew a man who borrowed 2 jugs of sesame oil and missed his repayment by a week. Now he's living in a shed, grinding barley 12 hours a day for the same man who sold him the oil. Funny how that works. And now you're sweating not just from the heat. Your debt isn't big. A small grain loan from the temple granary during a rough planting season. But still, if you can't repay it soon, you'll have to hand over something. Yourself. Historians still argue how widespread debt slavery was. Some think it was rare, a last resort. Others believe it was so common that families built it into their survival plans. One cuneiform tablet even records a father selling his son into service to pay off a neighbor's lost ox. Nice parenting. You peek around the corner. Debt guy is gone. You exhale, then immediately inhale a lungful of alley stench and regret it. You reach a courtyard where a group of women are spinning wool, chatting softly. One of them pauses and stares. You know that look. She's measuring you, deciding if you belong. Social status is visible here. In your shoes, your skin, your hands. Yours say worker. Hers say work. You nod. She doesn't nod back. You move on. In the next street, a man loads sacks of grain onto a cart. Each sack is stamped with a clay seal proof of ownership. You pause. That seal. It belongs to the temple. That means this grain is part of the ration system, distributed to workers, possibly to people like you. Or, if you miss a deadline, taken from people like you. A scribe nearby is counting the sacks out loud. Another writes the totals down with slow, careful strokes. It's all tracked. Everything is tracked. Births, deaths, marriages, debts. One wrong number, and someone's life changes forever. You keep moving. Suddenly, a voice calls out. Hey, you wanna make 2 shekels? You turn. A broad-shouldered man stands beside a small shrine with broken bricks. I need help fixing this before sundown, he says. Quick work. Fair coin. You nod, grateful. He tosses you a hammer and points to the pile. You dig in. The bricks are sun-baked and uneven. The mortar smells like vinegar. Your arms protest, but your stomach reminds you. 2 shekels means you eat tomorrow. As you work, the man talks. He once served in a nobleman's house. A good job, he says. Then he got sick. Couldn't work. Sold his robe. Then his tools. Then he sold himself. 3 years as a house slave. He only got free last month. You don't interrupt. You just lay bricks and listen. When you're done, he drops 2 tiny silver discs into your hand. They're light, almost absurdly so, for the weight they carry in your life. You thank him and leave before he changes his mind. You take a long route home, past the docks. The harbor smells of river mud, fish guts, and hope. Small boats bob beside stone platforms, each one piled with goodswood from the north, copper from the east, incense from the south. Mesopotamia isn't just a civilization, it's connected. Trade pulses through its veins like blood. You watch a man argue over a shipment of date wine. Another unloads crates of dried fish, muttering about spoiled cargo. A third missing. A thumb offers you a jar rowing upriver. Tomorrow, you decline politely. Your back already hates you enough. Nearby, a woman wraps her arm around a young boy and counts coins from her shawl. He stares at you with big eyes. You remember that look? You had it once, before you knew what debts, rations, and temple contracts really meant. It's getting darker now. The wind picks up. For a moment, it carries a scent from the ziggurat-burned offerings, ash, and sweet resin. You remember, tonight is a festival, a minor one, probably for Nana the moon god. There'll be music, maybe dancing. If you're lucky, some leftover bread. You touch the coins in your pouch, just to be sure they're still there. They clink quietly, like a promise. You survived the debt collector. You earned a little, and you're still free. At least for today. But you know the rules here. Freedom is temporary. Debt is eternal. And silver never stays long in your hands. You finally make it home again, bones tired, skin sticky, coins warm in your pocket. But just as you begin to settle on your mat, someone starts coughing nearby. Not a polite little throat clip. No, this is the deep, hacking, body-shaking kind that makes you instinctively scoot away, even though you're already on the wall. Your younger cousin, the one who tends the family goats, is curled in the corner. He's burning with fever. His eyes are glassy, and his breath wheezes like wind through cracked reeds. You groan inwardly. You know what comes next. You need a healer. Now, healer in Mesopotamia is a generous word. You don't call a doctor. You summon a Zipua priest exorcist trained in a combo of medicine, magic, and very intense guesswork. The second option is an Asa practical healer who might give you herbs, bandages, or a heartstone to chew on, depending on the symptoms. You opt for both. Soon, two men arrive. One wears dark robes and carries a pouch filled with animal bones and incense. The other wears a faded linen wrap and has plants sticking out of his belt. Team Ancient Urgent Care has arrived. They begin their work. The priest starts by chanting an incantation to Gula, goddess of healing. His voice rises and falls like a saw through clay. Then he sprinkles holy water on the boy, waves a bundle of reeds, and draws protective symbols on the floor with crushed lead. The herbalist, meanwhile, examines the boy's tongue and says something about heat demons in the chest. He mixes a poultice made of date sap, mashed onions, and crushed snakeskin. He smears it across the boy's chest with solemn confidence. You're not reassured. Historians still debate how effective Mesopotamian medicine really was. Some argue they had a shockingly advanced understanding of symptoms and treatments diagnosing epilepsy, tuberculosis, and eye infections. Others point out that many treatments involved licking frogs or applying crocodile fat. So, mixed results. The priest suddenly stops. We need a sheep. You blink to read its liver. Liver divination ex dysposius, standard diagnostic procedure here. The idea is, if the gods cause the sickness, the gods must also provide the clue to curing it, by arranging weird bumps and colors on a sheep's liver. You sigh and send your cousin to borrow a sheep from a neighbor. It returns, reluctantly. 5 minutes later, it's on the ground. The priest performs the sacrifice with care, slicing cleanly and reverently. He opens the animal, pulls out the glistening liver, and studies it like it's a clay map to divine secrets. He turns it, tilts it, squints. Then he frowns. That's not good, he mutters. You don't ask. You don't want to know. The herbalist suggests more hot compresses, and maybe a bit of honey wine. You nod. You have neither. He shrugs, writes something on a scrap of palm leaf, and leaves. The priest sprinkles ash around the doorway to ward off roaming spirits. You thank him. He leaves. Just as your cousin vomits on the floor. You clean it up with a clay scoop and some river sand. You think about medicine in your own time-sterile tools. Hospitals, antibiotics. Then you look at the snakeskin poultice and the sheep liver glistening in the corner, and you think, well, at least they're trying. Later, you sit beside the boy, gently fanning him. His fever is still raging, but his breathing slows. You whisper prayers to Gula. You'd even throw in one to Enki just in case. This is what healthcare looks like here. A ritual, a gamble, and a handful of plants you can't pronounce. You remember when your uncle caught the eye demon? The healers made him bathe his eyes in milk and sleep, with a protective amulet under his tongue. It cleared up, or maybe it just left. No one's sure. Then there was the girl with the knife. The priests said she was possessed. They chanted, shook rattles, burned cedar resin, and made her wear a necklace of dried lizard tails. It worked, or she got bored and pretended to sleep. Either way, cured. In Mesopotamia, sickness isn't just a physical problem, it's spiritual, cosmic. You're marked, and to fix it, you don't just treat the body, you treat the universe. Your cousin stirs. You check his forehead. Still hot, but his hands have stopped trembling. That's something. You drape a damp cloth over his head and whisper more nonsense to the gods, just in case they're listening. Outside, a dog barks. A baby wails. The city lives on, even as yours hangs in a fevered haze. You glance at the sheep liver again. It's still glistening. You throw a cloth over it and turn away. If the gods are still watching, you hope they're feeling generous, because otherwise, you're going to need another sheep. It's dark now. Not movie night dark. Not cozy evening dark. No, this is Mesopotamian dark. A blackness so thick it presses against your skin. The kind that makes you squint even when your eyes are wide open. There are no street lamps. No gentle glows from windows. Just the occasional flicker of a flame behind clay walls. And the steady, watchful gaze of the ziggurat, pavlooming like a sleeping giant draped in starlight. You clutch your oil lamp as you walk. The flame dances wildly, barely clinging to life against the soft night wind. The lamp smells of burnt sesame and smoke. You hold it close, but not too close. Last week, a neighbor set their fringed tunic on fire and ran screaming into a water jar. As you approach the center of town, the ziggurat seems even taller, its steps disappearing into the sky. The top level, the temple, is where the gods supposedly rest. Tonight, they're getting offerings. Again, you're not sure which god though. Maybe Nana of the moon deity. Maybe Ishtar, goddess of love and warby. Cause who doesn't enjoy a deity with emotional range? Either way, you hear the bells, the soft chime of bronze echoing in the night. It's time for the temple watch. You were assigned this duty last week. You thought it would be relaxing. Spoiler, it's not. You arrive at the temple gate, where a guard leans against the wall half asleep, humming something that might be a hymn or maybe a breakup song. His bronze dagger is dull. His armor is basically fancy leather. He nods at you without making eye contact. You step inside the courtyard. There's incense, burning sweet, heady, almost cloying. A priest walks by carrying a tray of goat bones and pomegranate peels. Sacred trash, apparently. You nod respectfully. He doesn't nod back. Your job is simple. Watch. Watch the offerings. Watch the temple gate. Watch the stars. If you must, just watch. You take your place on a stone bench near the sacred flame. It's housed in a metal basin, kept alive all night by temple apprentices, who draw straws to see who gets smoke duty. You settle in. You breathe. The city is strangely quiet now, aside from the occasional jackal cry in the distance. And then, you hear it. A low, warbling song. You squint toward the gate. It's the drunk god again, singing to himself, or to the moon, or possibly to a very disinterested frog. You let him sing, but then you hear footsteps. You tense, hand drifting toward your belt. Not that you're armed, you're holding a wooden staff, which is basically a large stick with career aspirations. The figure turns the corner. It's a woman in ceremonial robes, carrying a basket of figs and a tiny statue wrapped in cloth. She nods once, sets the basket near the altar, and leaves. You let out a breath. Still alive. Historians still debate whether temple watches were sacred responsibilities, or just unpaid night shifts, based on the smell of sweat and fried lamp oil stuck to your hair. It's leaning hard toward the second. As you sit there, trying to stay awake, you hear a whisper of wings overhead. An owl glides silently across the sky. Good omen. Some say bad omen. Others say, you choose to interpret it as, you're not dead yet. Comforting. Another hour passes. The sacred flame sputters. You feed it a pinch of incense from the bowl beside you. The smoke curls upward like a question mark. You have many questions. None of them have answers. The drunk god sits beside you now, humming. He offers you a date. You take it. It's mushy. You chew anyway. Hunger doesn't argue with freshness. He tells you a story slurred and half-true about a temple cat that once attacked a thief and earned its own shrine. You nod, like you've heard this before. Maybe you have. The guard forgets things. So do you. Time drips slowly. A dog barks in the distance. Someone yells. A ceramic pot shatters. Then, silence. You lean back, neck aching, eyes drooping. You try to stay alert. You try counting stars. You get to 12 before your head bobs. Then a bell rings. Shift change. You hand the staff to the next poor soul, who looks just as exhausted as you, only with less soot on his face. He takes your place without a word. You don't blame him. Talking hurts now. You walk away, feet dragging. The ziggurat behind you, now glowing faintly with first light. You survive the night. Well, barely. You don't even make it halfway home before you're intercepted by your mother. She's standing at the alley's entrance with arms crossed. A look that says, "You're not escaping this one." She doesn't say anything right away. She doesn't have to. You know what's coming. "Today," she says, "we visit the family of the girl." You freeze. The girl? You've heard whispers for weeks now. Her family's been eyeing yours from across the market. Her uncle ran into your father near the temple. Her cousin casually asked your age while buying onions. This isn't courtship, it's reconnaissance. In Mesopotamia, love isn't about butterflies or glances across grain sacks. It's about negotiations, contracts, and livestock. You don't fall in love. You get assigned it, hopefully, with a dowry and minimal goat drama. You follow your mother through the winding streets, heart pounding like a festival drum. You're not even sure what this girl looks like. You think she sells textiles near the east wall, or maybe she's the one with the 3 loud brothers and the terrifying grandmother. Either way, this isn't about charm, it's about terms. You arrive at their home, a larger mud brick house with an actual door and a garden plot. Fancy, you're ushered inside. The girl's father sits on a low stool, stroking his beard like it's part of the ceremony. He nods once. You both understand this is a power game. Her mother brings out a tray of dates and some kind of thick milk drink. You accept both. The milk tastes like regret. You smile politely. Then the negotiations begin. How many sheep can your family provide? The father asks, eyes sharp. Your mother counters with 2 sheep, 1 jug of oil, and a bronze comb passed down from my grandmother. He huffs. The girl can cook. She weaves. And she's a virgin. You choke slightly on your date. He continues. Her cousin's marriage brought in 3 goats and a silver bracelet. Your mother raises an eyebrow. Her cousin also had crooked teeth and a temper like a lion. We're not comparing. The back and forth continues. It's half auction, half poetry slam. You sit in silence, trying not to look directly at the girl sitting in the corner. She's modestly dressed, head slightly bowed, eyes occasionally darting toward you like she's sizing up a brick. She offers you a fig. It's awkward. You take it. It's underripe. Romantic. Historians still argue whether Mesopotamian marriages had romantic elements or were purely transactional. Some records mention love poems, sweet lines carved into clay tablets. Others describe wives being handed off like clay jars with handles. Eventually, they'd reach an agreement. 2 sheep, 3 baskets of barley, a comb, and a pair of sandals. Worn, but not broken. A scribe is called. He arrives with a stylus, a slab of clay, and the enthusiasm of a man who knows this will take all afternoon. The contract is drafted. Names, terms, dowry details, witness marks. There's a clause about childbearing. Another about what happens if either family fails to deliver the goods. It's basically a prenup carved into a brick. You're told to press your thumb into the clay. It feels cool, gritty, permanent. Just like that, you're engaged. You walk home with your mother in stunned silence. She seems pleased. You feel something. Dread, curiosity, a growing need to figure out how to talk to your future wife without referencing sheep. Back home, your father congratulates you with a pat on the back and a cup of beer. Your younger cousin, still feverish, blinks at you and mumbles, "Does she have a goat?" You're not sure if he means as a dowry or as a pet. That night, you lie awake, staring at the ceiling beams. You think of the girl. You'd think of the figs. You'd think of the contract drying at the scribe's house. Marriage in Mesopotamia isn't just about 2 people, it's about families, land, status, and making sure your children will inherit something solid. You wonder what she's thinking. Is she relieved? Anxious? Already regretting the fig? Tomorrow, you'll probably see her again, maybe at the temple, maybe at the market, and eventually, There will be a ceremony, a feast, and a week where you pretend this all makes sense. But for now, you're just a tired Mesopotamian with a thumb full of clay, a heart full of questions, and a lifetime of awkward dinners ahead. The sun's barely up when your father kicks the base of your mat and says, "Time for school." You groan. You've survived heat stroke, debts, divinations, and goat negotiations. But this might be the worst part of your entire Mesopotamian existence. You trudge through the already baking streets toward the Edabetha tablet house. School for scribes, school for suffering. The building is small, square, and made of the same mud brick as everything else in your life. Inside, it's dim and cool, the air thick with the smell of damp clay and crushed reeds. There's no chalkboard, no desks, just low benches, piles of damp clay tablets, and the oppressive presence of the headmaster, who greets you with a raised eyebrow and a reed stylus that's been sharpened like it holds a personal grudge. You sit cross-legged and try not to make eye contact. Class begins. No one talks. No one dares. The only sound is the scratching of styluses against clay and the occasional hiss of a boy who just got his fingers smacked for bad handwriting. Because yes, here, if you mess up your wedge strokes, you get smacked on the knuckles with a reed stylus. It stings like betrayal. You pick up your stylus and begin downstroke wedge triangle again. You're not writing poetry or thoughts. You're copying standard list city names, gods, birds, fish, types of beer. These lists go on for tablets. It's less about learning and more about breaking your soul into wedge-shaped fragments. The instructor walks by. He peers over your shoulder. You hold your breath. He grunts, then moves on. Relief tastes like old barley. Historians know a surprising amount about these schools. Hundreds of clay tablets have been found with scribbled lessons, practice drills, even cheeky student notes like, "I don't like this teacher," or "Why must I write this?" One even says, "You broke my tablet and lied about it." So yeah, ancient kids were just as dramatic. But education here isn't for everyone. Only boys from elite or scribal families get this chance. It's prestigious. It leads to temple jobs, accounting work, and if you're really lucky, palace appointments. Your parents are counting on you. No pressure. Today's lesson is a classic. The proverb tablet. You scratch into the damp clay. The poor man is better dead than alive. Uplifting. Then, he who has silver eats. He who has none sees it. A scribe without a tablet is like a pig without mud. You're not sure if that last one's supposed to be funny, but the kid next to you snorts. The teacher hears it. He raises an eyebrow. You both immediately look studious. You switch to math, not numbers. Mesopotamian math is a base 60 system, which sounds like a nightmare until you remember that they invented it. 60 is the number. You count grain in Silla, land in Iku, and time in well, basically pain. Your task: convert 5 Silla of barley into days of rationing for a man, 2 children, and a goat. You stroke. The goat alone throws off the math. At midday, the teacher allows a break. You're told to carry a batch of clay tablets to the scribe hole near the temple. You do so with shaking arms. These things are heavy and fragile, and if you drop one, you'll have to remake it by hand. That takes an hour, maybe more. Outside, the sun slams into your skull like a club. You squint your way across the square, sweat stinging your eyes. A temple worker nods and takes the tablets. You sprint back just in time for grammar drills. You sit and begin the road scribbling. The scribe wrote the tablet. The god blessed the city. The king crushed the rebellion. Again. The ink never changes. The hands do. Later, you overhear 2 older students whispering about the big test. Apparently, it involves writing a full trade contract from memory, including proper witness marks, clause spacing, and tribute values. If you pass, you might become a junior temple clerk. If you fail, back to copying bird names. You file that under future problems. Near the end of the lesson, the instructor recites part of the famous Sumerian tale of Enmakar. You try to pay attention. It's about a king who builds temples and sends riddles to a rival city. You think the moral is, always send messengers, never go yourself. You write that down. You'll pretend it's insightful later. The class ends. You're exhausted, sore, and coated in specks of dried clay. Your hands are cramping. Your back is locked. But your tablet is intact. Your writing is legible. And your teacher didn't hit you. A perfect day. You step outside into the golden light. The city buzzing around you. You've earned no silver, no food, just knowledge and sore thumbs. But here, that's enough. Because someday, you won't carry bricks. You'll carry words. You're finally done with school for the day. When you hear the sound, everyone dreads horns. Not festive ones, not musical ones. These are the emergency kind, low and urgent, echoing off every brick wall in the city. You freeze mid-step, half a barley cake in your mouth. Around you, people drop baskets, rush out of alleys, start shouting. You already know what it means before anyone explains. Raiders. The guards are scrambling. A priest runs past, clutching a statue of Ishtar. Children are being herded indoors. Somewhere, a goat screams, possibly from panic, possibly because goats scream. You stuff the rest of the cake in your mouth and run. Not home, no. Time for that. You head for the wall. The city wall, thick and high, loops around the settlement like the arms of a very tired parent, built of baked mud brick, patched with reeds. It's your last line of defense against whatever neighbor city decided today was the day to test your gods. You scramble up a side stair, ignoring the angry shout of a guard. From the top, you see them, dust clouds, chariots, spears. This isn't a drill. You grip the edge of the wall and breathe. It's like something out of an epic, except you're not the hero. Your background, panic. Mesopotamian city-states didn't like to share. Uruk, your Lagash. Kish they traded, sure. But they also fought. Over water, over land, over whose god had the shiniest hat. Historians still argue whether these conflicts were ritualized or just straight-up grudge match. Either way, you're in one now. A god hands you a sling. Not because you're a trained soldier, but because they need bodies. You take it. You have no idea how to use it. Put a stone in. Swing. Let go. The guard says, then runs off. You hold the sling like it might explode. Another Manolda guard stands beside you with a bow. He doesn't say a word. Just knocks an arrow. Squints. And breathes like he's been doing this since Sargon's childhood. The enemy grows clearer. Not a full army, maybe. 50 men, mounted, armed with curved blades and round shields. Fast, loud, confident. The archers on the wall loose their first volley. Arrows rain down. You see one chariot tip over. Its driver, thrown like a rag doll. Cheers erupt. Briefly, then the rest charge. You swing your sling wildly and release. The stone sails high and lands somewhere in your own city. Whoops. You reload. This time, it hits the dirt near a charging foot soldier. Progress. The battle intensifies. Gods yell. Children cry. Priests chant. One woman throws a pot from her window. It hits someone. Square in the face. History may forget her name, but you won't. Suddenly, a breach. A section of the outer gate gives way. Raiders pour in like ants through a cracked jar. You panic. This is it. This is how you die, wearing dusty sandals and holding a weapon you don't understand. But then, a horn blasts again, your horn. Reinforcements flood in from the southern quarter. Men with shields, proper spears, and confidence that you can only dream of. They charge. The raiders falter. Someone shouts something in a dialect you don't understand. Then they retreat, just like that. It's over. Your knees give out. You slide down the wall, heart still hammering, hands covered in dust and sweat. You survived your first battle. Kind of. You didn't kill anyone. You might have accidentally injured a palm tree. But you stood there. You helped. You didn't run. That counts. Later, you walk through the wreckage. Broken carts. A shattered idol. Blood in the street, some of it already drying to a reddish crust on the bricks. You pass a woman holding her son tight, whispering thanks to any god that'll listen. You see a man dragging a wounded friend toward the temple for healing. You see the city, bruised but breathing. At the ziggurat steps, someone is already lighting incense, thanking the gods, appeasing them. You sit on a bench, sling still in your lap, wondering what would have happened if the reinforcements hadn't arrived. If the gate had failed completely. If your rock had hit you. Mesopotamia isn't just dust and gods and heat. It's war. Constant. Ugly. Personal. You live in a world where peace is just the pause between someone else's hunger. Tomorrow, the market will reopen. The scribe will write a report on the casualties. A goat will probably go missing. Life will move on. But for now, you lean back, close your eyes, and think, I need better shoes. You're still sore from the chaos of yesterday when you hear the temple bells again, this time not warning of war, but summoning the entire district. Oh, you peek out your door. People are filing into the temple square, muttering nervously. Some carry small offerings, jars of oil, fruit, even a pair of sandals. Others come empty-handed but white. That's when you hear it. Someone skipped temple duty. You sigh. In Mesopotamia, religion isn't a personal choice. It's your civic obligation, social contract, and full-time job whether you signed up or not. Everyone serves the gods. You miss a ritual, and bad things happen. Not in a you get a fine way, more in a plague on your whole neighborhood sort of way. You follow the crowd, passing a wall, freshly painted with scenes of Ishtar goddess of love, war, and definitely the type to smite you for such. The priests are already assembled near the altar, incense curls upward, mixing with the rising sun and the collective guilt of 50 sleepy civilians. You take your place near the back. Today's offense. One of the water haulers failed to complete a ritual offering to Enki, and now there's algae in the canal. The fish are acting strange, and someone's goat gave birth to a chicken. Probably. The head priest raises his hands. He wears shimmering robes, golden cuffs, and an expression like he already blames you personally. He begins to chant. The crowd responds. This ritual has been repeated for centuries, burning incense, libations of wine, murmured apologies to divine ears that may or may not be paying attention. Some whisper, some sing. One guy in the back is clearly asleep but nodding rhythmically. You're handed a palm branch and told to wave it. You do, with as much enthusiasm as a man who got his sandals stolen during a raid. Then comes the moment everyone dreads. The offering. The priests lead a spotless lamb groomed, soft, and entirely trusting up the temple steps. The knife gleams. The crowd quiets. A quick prayer. Then it's done. Blood spills over the altar stones. The priests collect it in bowls and sprinkle it across the stones, murmuring phrases older than most languages. You suppress a gag. Historians still debate how symbolic versus literal these offerings were. Some say the blood fed the gods. Others argue it nourished the temple economy. You're just trying not to pass out. Once the lamb is gone, the chants shift. Now it's time to honor the gods, every one of them. There's a lot. There's Enlil, the sky god and occasional flood enthusiast. Nana, the moon god with excellent timing. Utu, the sun god with strong dad energy. Gula, healer of bones and bruises. And of course, Ishtahu can bless your crops or burn your house down, depending on her mood. Each gets a verse, a candle, a slice of cake. The last one is mostly decorative. You've never actually seen a god eat. You glance around the square. People bow. A few cry. One man near the ziggurat is shaking either from awe or hangover. Then come the dancers. 5 women and 2 men, dressed in light linen and painted with symbols, begin the sacred movement. It's rhythmic, hypnotic. Their feet slap the stones in perfect time with the drums. You sway, whether you want to or not. You start to feel that weird hum, that tingling in your teeth when a ritual goes on just long enough that you forget your sandals are too tight. For a moment, you believe it all. The gods, the sky, the cosmic justice system. You close your eyes. Then someone sneezes, and the spell breaks. The priest announces the guilt has been lifted. The waters will run clean, and the chicken goat incident shall not happen again. Everyone cheers softly. You're dismissed. But before you leave, a junior priest hands you a wax-sealed clay tag. It's your assigned temple duty for next week. You groan. Floor sweeping. Temple sweeping isn't just dusting statues. It's cleaning out wax drips, ash piles, animal fur, and occasionally whatever the gods decided to reject. It smells like burnt cedar and disappointment. But you nod. You accept. Because refusing would be worse. You head home, the incense still clinging to your tunic. You pass a group of kids reenacting the ritual with a clay chicken and too much enthusiasm. One of them throws a fig. You dodge, barely. Back in your courtyard, your father nods in approval. You didn't disgrace the ancestors, he says. High praise. You wash your hands. The water is lukewarm and smells faintly of copper. Still, you feel clean. You sit on your mat, watching the sunset turn the ziggurat golden. And you think, life here is ruled by gods, by rituals, by the fear that skipping one chant might ruin your crop yield or curse your left foot. You wonder if the gods ever skip a day. Probably not. They're not allowed to. Just like you. You lie back, the sound of a final temple bell ringing in the distance. You survived religion today, barely. You're lying down on your mat, fully intending to sleep, when you hear a sudden, shrill yelp in the distance, followed by frantic barking. Someone yelling in a language that sounds half human, half panic, and a loud splash. You sit up. Yep, Someone fell into the canal again. You'd feel bad if it wasn't the third time this week. But it's fine. The yelling stops. The barking fades. Silence returns. You lie back down again. And then something buzzes past your ear. You slap blindly. You groan. Pull your scratchy blanket up to your chin and try to ignore the wave of new, itchy bites on your legs. The Mesopotamian mosquito doesn't care that you've survived raids, gods, and barley math. It just wants your blood and possibly your dignity. As your eyes close, your brain starts to drift until you cough. Then your nose runs. Then you shiver. You pull your blanket tighter, but it doesn't help. The evening heat has turned to a dry chill, and you're now lying awake, sniffling, sweating, and panicking. Is it just a cold? Or is it one of the 10,000 ways to die in ancient Mesopotamia? Because truly, your options are endless. Let's go down the list. There's always disease, the subtle kind that starts as a headache and ends with a temple funeral and your cousin crying because she wanted your sandals. Clean water is a luxury. Sanitation, questionable. And with everyone living elbow to goat, viruses spread like gossip. Then there's dehydration. You drank canal water yesterday. That was a mistake. You remember the smell? You remember the floating things? You try not to remember. You fail. And don't forget, snakes. There was one in your neighbor's oven last week. He tried to cook bread, and the snake tried to cook him. Historians say Mesopotamians had antidotes for some bites, crushed onions, beer, and maybe you're not betting on those odds. Then there's floods. Sudden ones, violent ones. You've seen entire streets disappear overnight. One guy floated past you on a door, clutching a chicken. He was surprisingly calm about it. Of course, if the water doesn't get you, fire might. These homes, made of reeds, oil lamps, and optimism. One knock of the elbow and poof, you're the centerpiece of the next guilt offering. Or maybe you'll just catch the wrong god's attention. Skip a festival. Forget a prayer. Step over a sacred threshold without untying your sandals. Bam, cursed barley. Cursed animals. Cursed hair. No one wants cursed hair. You roll onto your side, staring at the wall. Some people get sick and recover. Others don't. There's no pattern, no fairness. You remember your cousin's fever, the poultice, the sheep. It worked. This time, you feel a little better. Maybe you're just tired. Maybe it's not divine punishment. Maybe you close your eyes again. Then you hear a howl. It's not human. It's not close. But it's not far either. Jackals you freeze. Jackals roam at night, looking for scraps. Sometimes babies, occasionally goats. If your door isn't secure, they might wander in. If you're sleeping too close to the alley entrance, you might wake up missing something you'd like to keep. You sit up, check the reed doormat. It's tight, good. You lie back down. Then you remember the ceiling cracked last week. A big one, right above your head. What if it collapses tonight? You stare at the ceiling. It stares back. You sigh. You breathe. You'll remember that. Despite everything, you're still here. You've made it through another Mesopotamian day. One full of sweat, gods, contracts, onions, blood, dust, and weird fish. You've survived the heat, the food, the jobs, the debts, the laws, the marriage deal, the battle, the temple, the math, and whatever that fig was. And so now, you let your muscles go soft. Your thoughts drift like incense smoke, and you're breathing slow. You're still alive. You made it, somehow. So now, the city sleeps. The fires in the ziggurats' upper chambers flicker low, barely seen through the mist of incense and night fog. The river murmurs softly nearby, its muddy currents carrying dreams and secrets downstream. The animals have quieted, even the dogs, even the jackals. The market stalls are empty, the clay jars covered, the doormats tied snugly against the wind. You shift beneath your blanket, the scratchy wool no longer Your hands rest over your stomach, still sore from work, but warm now. Your breath slows. Somewhere, a priest sings one final line of a hymn, voice like a thread unspooling into the dark. A temple bell chimes once, then all is still. You're safe, for now. The gods have been honored. The crops, what's left of them, are growing. Your debts haven't come calling. Your enemies are sleeping in their own cities, far beyond the reach of your tired heart. And you, a tiny piece of this great river civilization, have done what few can claim. You lived one full day in ancient Mesopotamia, and now you rest. Let the heat fade, let the dust settle, Let your thoughts melt into the rhythm of breath and silence. Because here, in the world's first cities, where time began and stories were carved into clay, you made it through the hardest part. The day's sweet dreams. Wanderer, you've earned them.